Let me name something that doesn't get talked about enough in leadership. Decision fatigue doesn't show up as a breakdown. It shows up in professionals, especially women, who are still highly competent, but quietly depleted. Here's the pattern: you're making high stakes decisions all day, carrying responsibility, reading the room, managing risk, and then your brain refuses to choose one more thing. The mistake most women make is assuming that means something is wrong with them. And the cost of misreading it, you keep pushing through depletion, eroding decision quality, and slowly losing trust in your own clarity. Not because you're failing, but because you're misinterpreting the signal. By the end of this, you'll understand why decision fatigue shows up even when you're still performing, and how to reduce the drain without pushing harder or questioning your competence. If you're new here, I'm Amanda L. Christian, founder of Soul Fire Leadership. And after 33 years leading global teams in finance and technology, I now work with high achieving women who are successful on paper, but quietly misaligned inside. This channel is where we talk about leadership, alignment, decision making, and the internal patterns that shape your career long before anyone else can see them. Here's the reframe that matters: decision fatigue isn't a failure of discipline or capacity. It's a signal that your decision making system is overloaded. And for mid career women in male dominated workspaces, that overload is rarely about volume alone. It's about how you've been making decisions and what you've been overriding to do it. Most of the women I work with don't look burned out on paper. They're still sharp at work. They still perform under pressure. They still carry responsibility well. But decision making outside of work starts to degrade. Small decisions feel heavy. Emails get reread without response. Personal choices get postponed. And that's unsettling because your identity has been built on clarity and competence. So when deciding starts to feel sluggish, the instinct is to turn inward and assume something is wrong. There isn't. This is what cognitive depletion looks like in capable systems. I noticed this myself years ago when I was leading large global teams. At work, my decision making was clean and fast. But at home, I couldn't decide what to eat. That contrast mattered because it showed me the issue wasn't intelligence or resilience. It was where my cognitive energy was being spent. Here's the pattern most leadership conversations skip. You're not just making decisions, you're managing how those decisions land, how to say something without backlash, when to push and when to soften, how to be firm without being labeled difficult or as a bitch. How much of yourself is safe to bring into the room? That layer isn't on any org chart, but it's cognitively expensive. And it requires constant self regulation. Decision fatigue hits women like you not because you can't decide, but because you're deciding and overriding yourself at the same time. Here's the distinction that changes everything. Decision fatigue isn't about how many decisions you make, though it does contribute. It's more about how many require you to override your instincts, needs, or boundaries to stay safe or acceptable. That internal negotiation costs more energy than the decision itself. Guilt plays a big role here. Guilt isn't a compass in this scenario. It's conditioning masquerading as responsibility. And when guilt is driving, decisions don't end when the choice is made. They linger, they replay, they drain. That's not weakness, that's sustained internal conflict. Earlier in your career, momentum buffered the cost. Mid career is different because you see patterns, you understand consequences, you know what decisions will require 6 months from now, not just tomorrow. That awareness is a strength and it's expensive. So, decision fatigue shows up as impatience with performative urgency, avoidance of small choices, and a quiet sense that something feels off even when things look fine. Your system is no longer willing to run on autopilot. Decision fatigue isn't asking you to optimize harder. It's asking you to stop leaking energy through misaligned decisions. Aligned decisions are cleaner. They require less internal negotiation. They restore trust with yourself. Aligned leadership doesn't remove hard choices. It removes unnecessary friction. Urgency stops being a proxy for importance. Guilt stops being consulted. And that shift frees more capacity than any productivity system ever will. So before you judge yourself, ask this: which decisions are exhausting me because they're not just decisions, they're negotiations with my conditioning? That answer tells you where your energy is leaking. And if this conversation resonated, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. It helps this message reach more professionals who are stuck in the same loop. And if you want more of these real conversations, the ones about leadership, alignment, identity, and the inner game of your career, hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, because we're just getting started.